Welcome into another edition of This Week in UNC Baseball with head coach Scott Forbes. I'm Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt. That is head coach Scott Forbes. As you can tell by all the – we need to get an office tour one day of all the awesome pictures you've got and everything. Folks see them every week and ask about them, but obviously very nice mementos in there.
Yeah.
And working on another one for this year, you go to – go north again in the freezing cold, it looked like. But what stood out for you this weekend in particular, aside from winning the games? I think Olin Johnson's performance maybe gets lost.
Yeah, he threw really good. I went into the weekend, you want to protect your players against the outside noise. And I think a lot of people are sweep. We need to sweep. They should sweep. In all reality, obviously, we're trying to sweep everybody, right? I mean, of course, trying to win every game. But I knew it was going to be difficult. Pitt has not been swept at home. They've been swept one time the entire season. That was the weekend before at Duke. They're a good team, and they're going to battle you, and you have to play well to win. So I knew it was going to be difficult. I told our guys it was going to be difficult. You go to Pitt, you look at the weather, it's like, oh, it's going to be nice. You get there, it's nice Thursday night, unbelievably nice. Nice during warm-ups on Friday. Then the rain starts. You got to fight through the rain. And then Saturday is freezing cold. And then, it didn't surprise me that it was hard. I thought it was going to be. Even the first game was hard, even though it looks like it wasn't. We hit all those home runs, but it was close early. What stood out was our resiliency, our toughness factor. Our starters all threw pretty well. I thought Olin was outstanding. Like you said, he had 3 very efficient innings, 32 pitches, kept us in that game, gave us a chance. We just couldn't piece anything together. And then yesterday, DeCaro, having a Sunday guy like that if you're not scoring, he's got a chance to keep you in it. And our defense, though, Tommy, was the big factor. Our defense was phenomenal all weekend. You look at the assists by Bash, you look at our outfield play, you look at the double plays we turned. Fundamentally, we played pretty good. A couple things that we have to improve on this week. But all in all, at the end of the day, when you go on the road and you win a series in this league, you're happy about it.
So a question I've always had, I understand it, but a lot of people don't, is why are the series themselves the more important thing than the wins? 2-1, yeah, you won the series, but why do you think the rankings and the way it works is the series, it's the 3-game series that matters the most rather than individual wins?
Yeah, I think because that's how they look at it. When it matters the most at the end. Obviously, regionals are a little bit different. That's why, again, I'll say it, they're the hardest to win. That regional is just – but, all year you're playing a 3-game series. It's like in the big leagues. It's the wild card, then it goes into the series, and it goes the best 4 out of 7. So it's whoever wins the series ends up making, advances. And if you do, you are fortunate enough to play in the national championship. It's like LSU 2 years ago. I reminded our guys after we won 15-5, do you know what LSU lost to Florida the night before they won it? They lost 4-24. They won game 1, lost 4-24, and won game 3. So at the end of the day in baseball, those series, you like to get a sweep every now and then. We got one with Wake. You want to prevent getting swept, but at the end of the day, if you win 2 out of 3, you're in good shape.
When you mentioned game 1 being a struggle, obviously – when you're hitting home runs like that, it does make it look a lot easier than maybe it was. But why do you think, or when you go back and review everything and you guys discuss it as a staff, how does one go from Friday, you're playing that well, hitting the ball well, and then Saturday it sort of dries up, but then Sunday you come back with some critical at-bats there late to push that game away? Where's the balance there of the consistency, or is it purely based on who you're facing on the mound?
Honestly, I think most times who you're facing. This time of year, if I'm concerned about our team showing up, we don't have the team that we need to have anyway. Mm-hmm. You get to this point of the season and you don't show up, instead of potentially hosting a region or being a national seed, you're not going to be. So I'm just honest with our guys about that. Hey, you have to treat every game at this point like it's the postseason for you to get what you want, to be in the position you want to be in the postseason. But those arms, man, they're the equalizers. and their best guy was going game 2, Reed. He's their best guy by far. And he pitched well enough where they could piggyback him with their best bullpen arm, who's been really good in our league, has some of the best numbers in our league. And teams do that sometimes. If they don't have – we're one of the rare teams in the league this year, that has pretty much Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Probably us and Florida State have been that way the whole season. If you don't have that, how can you match up or potentially throw off to at least get a win or maybe get 2? And I think that was Pitt's philosophy. And Reed's always been good. He's a low quarter slot lefty, hard to square up, and he pitched pretty good. But I think that's why you don't score runs most of the time. Sometimes you just have a day where you're having bad at-bats or you start pressing. But I didn't think that was the case. I just thought they pitched well.
Yeah, and a lot of people that don't pay attention, Pitt, like you mentioned, hasn't been swept but once, but also usually wins on Saturday with that guy throwing. He's been good. Let me ask you about Gavin Gallagher and Jason DeCaro. Coming into the season, they probably got the most hype outside noise, if we want to call it, coming into the year, and they sort of started slowly a little bit. Do you think – I'd like your take on the expectations and the weight of expectations for guys. You've coached a ton of great ball players, and everybody bears that burden. Do you think that was sort of a burden for those two early in the year, maybe? DeCaro started out hot, and then had his
I think any competitor, depending on where their mind is and their heart is, both these kids, in a good way, if anything, they were putting pressure on themselves because they felt like they needed to perform extremely high level for us to perform as a team, which you want those type of kids. And then that's where coaching comes in, where you just try to help them say, hey, man, you're not going to be perfect. We have a team. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And then obviously, if you have a great freshman year, you're a freshman All-American, you pitch for USA Baseball, you go to the Cape. What I try to explain to these guys is to keep them more centered from the standpoint of you're just trying to get better. Get a little bit better every single day, and it's going to be harder. It gets harder. People think, because it's like Nick Saban's my favorite thing is his nothing short lecture. Like when you wake up every day, it doesn't matter you were an All-American. If anything, I'm going to turn up my scouting report on Gavin Gallagher. I'm going to lock in more on Jason DeCaro for what they've done. So it only gets harder, challenging them to make them understand that it's going to, the better you play, the harder it gets. But if you're working your tail off and you're preparing, you take the results, and then the results aren't always what you want, but you have to be able to manage both of those. And we try to help them do that here too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that as far as scouting reports. Do you have guys at the top of a scout? Like when you go to one of these teams, you say, okay, Cantwell or whoever is their guy, he's up here. Or do you sort of equally press everybody? We talked about when a team's throwing 40 pitchers, there's only so much you can do. But as far as the main guys,
you're looking at every one of them, so you are prepared. But obviously, you're going to look at Jason DeCaro more because of innings pitched than Cam Padgett right now. But you better be ready for Cam Padgett because chances are he's going to pitch. So you want to spend as much time. But the starter is the big key first. Like, hey, we want to try to beat the starter. Because if we beat the starter, that means we've got a lead when he comes out. Then we'll address their top relievers based on appearances, and then offensively, you're looking at all these guys, and pretty much at this time of year who the starters are and who their 3 or 4 guys are off the bench. But you got to be ready for that guy that's got 25 at bats, and then when you get a guy thrown in there like we did, we started Parker McCoy. There's nothing you can really do. You don't have anything on them, so you just pitch to your pitcher's strength. So that's kind of how we go about it. But I don't want to use the word over scout, but if anything, I'd rather over scout than not scout enough.
You mentioned Parker McCoy. What made you put him in the lineup this week? You've tried a lot of different people at that position.
Yeah, definitely. He's had good BP. He's looked good. You want to always plan for injuries. He's an infielder. Working him really hard. We've been very fortunate, but you don't know what's coming your way. I've learned to plan for something that you don't expect to happen. And him and Lee Sowers can both play second or third, so we're working them hard there, try to get him some at bats, and he's looked good. And we felt like that was a good matchup for him. Left-handed, we're searching for another right-handed hitter. Kellis and Dive struggled some, and he hadn't really been given those opportunities, so we just want to throw him in there and see how he did, kind of like we did Lee Sowers.
Absolutely. Lee Sowers he's one of the most hilarious guys you've got on your roster, but
Yeah, he
can play as well. Let's sort of look past the series win this weekend. Obviously, the record scrolling at the bottom, 33-10, 15-9 in the ACC, tied for third. NC State, of course, we can talk about them in a minute. They look pretty good this weekend, but you have a quote bye weekend this weekend with exams on campus and all. And I wanted to sort of ask you about the pitching plan and how you deal with that. Obviously 2 midweeks, so I'd love to hear who you plan on throwing there. But also, how do you handle your starters, your weekend starters, when you have no weekend series?
Yeah. Fortunately and unfortunately, we've had to deal with this since I've been here. So we've got experience in what we try to do to be most ready for, obviously, NC State. We got Campbell sandwiched in between. And I don't like it. I'm not going to act like I do. I'd like to be playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody's like, oh, the break's coming at a good time. Well, if you got some guys banged up, like a Sawyer Black who's coming back from hamate, it does come at a good time because he might be ready for Campbell. He might be ready for NC State. But from the pitching standpoint, I always hated it. I want to keep our guys on track. So we just come up with ways to try to simulate them. We'll throw Jake Knapp, Houck, DeCaro potentially on our game mound. We play State Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So we'll throw them Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Have them throw 15 pitches, sit down. They're not going to face hitters at this point. But we'll have the track man on. Just try to simulate a game as much as you can, just to keep their arms and their mechanics in the right spot. But we do have 2 games, first. So we have a really good George Mason team who's leading the A-10, and I think it's 29-14 or 29-13, 29-15 actually. So, we got to have a starter there, and then we play Queens, and we'll have a starter there. Depending on what the weather looks like next year, you could potentially start DeCaro against Campbell because it would do him more good to get on the mound against a real team with a lower pitch count, maybe 50, 60 pitches. And then he'd start Sunday against State. So you have a lot of options that we talked through for a long time. That's why I was late getting on, trying to map it all out because we basically have these 2 games, exams. We don't play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 1, 2, 3, 5 days, which isn't terrible. Thank goodness we were able to sandwich those games in with Queens and Campbell. But it's really just trying to keep the pitching sharp. I'm not that concerned about our at-bats because we've had so many at-bats. They'll be ready to go. We can simulate things with the machine. So I'm not sure what we're going to do with those guys. I know that Knapp and Houck will not pitch. Knapp coming off his injury, give him a little break. He'll simulate a game. Houck's done a lot of innings. But DeCaro's, we got flexibility because he's not throwing until game 3 against NC State, probably. So what do we do? Do you pitch him against Campbell? And we'll just have to wait and look at the weather, because we're not playing on graduation. But if we have weather where they let us play, there's so much that goes into it. We're probably going to start, McDuffie actually tomorrow, because if you look at McDuffie, he's basically been a starter the last 2 weeks, just the way it's worked out. He's thrown once against Virginia Tech, 6 days off. He might have done the same thing against Wake. Once against Wake, once against Virginia Tech, once against Pitt, but he only threw 60 pitches, so he needs to pitch this week. And he needs to get some more length because he's not going to pitch again until Campbell. So we're probably going to start McDuffie on Tuesday, because he has plenty of rest, and let him get on the mound and get us off to a good start, hopefully. And then we have all of our guys available except for our weekend starters on Tuesday, and then TBA on Wednesday with all likelihood probably Folger against Queens.
Yeah, a lot of things to work out there, which sort of leads me into my next topic here. And we're talking about head coach Scott Forbes on This Week in UNC Baseball, is the piggybacking idea that you sort of implemented this year, where you have Jake and McDuffie comes behind him, or whatever order you want to go it in. Ideally, you throw 2 pitchers a game, right? Is that fair to say if it works out that way. But not having a sort of certified closer, how do you think you carry forward on your plan here? And what do you do if something goes sideways to upset that plan? I know you plan a lot. You talked about over scouting and being
Yeah.
prepared. Where are you there at this point in the season? What are we, 40 games in?
Well, I think it's a little misleading because I feel like McDuffie and Lynch are a two-headed monster. I feel that now they've shown they can get the last 3 outs too. They just had to start earlier than we necessarily wanted them to. So I'm comfortable saying both those we want them to be to close the game, if at all possible. But if we're in a situation where we have to take Knapp out in the 6th or 7th, and we have a chance to win on Friday, just like we would in a regional or super, you know what? The regional is the toughest thing again, Tommy. Like you don't want to plan for losing in the regional. You just react when you lose. You want to plan to win the daggum thing. So to do that is you win the first game, then you win the next game. And if you're looking at a weekend series, if we're like we're doing, and it's a super regional, well, if we win with Knapp and McDuffie, we got Lynch available either game. So we got a chance to win. Kind of did that with Dalton, and we did that with Maddie last year. Once we had to move Houck into the rotation. So really, I'm comfortable. If Knapp goes 8 innings, it's going to be McDuffie or Lynch. And I would like us, but now Olin's throwing better. Cam's had some bright spots. If we get 1 or 2 more guys to step up where they can bridge the gap in the 7th, maybe 6th or 7th, I would like to hold McDuffie and have him available twice in a weekend. We just haven't been able to do that, and we had the opportunity to win game 1, which gives you all the momentum. And then hey, we want to sweep, but to win this series, we're going to pick when we lose Lynch. So against Pitt, we're down, and I'm like, I'm not using Ryan Lynch unless we tie it or we take the lead. And we would do the same thing. I read a really good article how Jay Johnson approached that national championship after they won game 1. He just told his staff, we just if we get to game 3, we got schemes. And we don't want to, if we get beat and they lost 4-24. But we have 3 starters that are capable. If they go deep, you got two-headed monster, just like a Matthias and Pence from last year that you're hoping to win the game with. And then you have these other guys that if you get behind, they can keep you in a game. And that's where Olin, he gave us a legit chance. We hit a 3-run home run, and we're ahead 5-4. Well, then Lynch trots out there and he closes it. And then he would have been available as well on Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, why would McDuffie throw so many pitches when you're up 15-5 or whatever it was? And so it's interesting to hear how you describe the planning.
That's a great question because once it wasn't 15-5 when he went out, it was close. And his pitch count had gotten so far up. People don't know how kids recover. They don't know. Once he's above, like, okay, well, he's not going to pitch again this weekend anyway. Why in the world would you burn another pitcher? Why would we go to Olin not knowing if McDuffie's going to be the pitch on Sunday? Once he got up to about 40, 45, with his recovery process, we just felt like at this point in the season, let's just finish with him, use 2 pitchers. And, Olin's thrown good enough where he'll be ready to rock and roll tomorrow.
So at this point in the year, you're pretty set on knowing if this guy throws this many pitches, he's done for the weekend. And
yeah, everybody recovers differently. Everybody has different injury history that people don't know about. You got to manage guys differently. So you have to take care of these kids in their arms. And then Walker McDuffie, he's not built like Ryan Lynch as far as his size. But yeah, absolutely. I would like Knapp to go 7 and McDuffie to go 2 and throw 30 pitches. But it don't always happen like that because if he does that the other night at Pitt, we give McDuffie off. McDuffie can probably throw again Saturday, or he can definitely throw Sunday. But once you get in that 50-60 range, you got to be smart this time of year. You want them to be able to do that. That's what I feel like we've been good at. I want Walker McDuffie when we get to the postseason. I want him to be able to throw 50 pitches on Friday and be able to close on Sunday. But he's not going to be able to do that if he's doing it over and over and over. He's going to have nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, insight into how it all works. If there's one thing people question the most or ask about the most, is how do you decide who pitches and length and all that stuff. Let me ask one more question on the topic. How do you decide when you're pulling a guy? Because you've let, I think, Aiden against Virginia Tech, what did he give up? 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And he stayed out there. But then Jason looked pretty strong late, and you get him out of there. Where's that line of deciding, hey, I'm getting a guy. I'm going to get him now. This is the $64,000 question.
That's a thing that you just have to accept. So thankful I was a pitching coach, but once you become a head coach, I don't think you can do it at this level without just saying, here's what we're doing. It's like the other day, yesterday we're discussing, they have second and third. I think it's the 5th or the 4th. And the count goes 3-1. And one of the coaches is like, hey, we should just put them on. The other coach, do we really want to put them on? We're talking about it. And you got to decide. Or you just second guess. So I yell out to the umpire, put them on. And we pitch the guys hitting whatever. They pitch hit for him. He hits a fly ball to Bass, and Bass throws him out. So it worked out. But so you're either basically, you got to be able to live with it, right? Hey, I'm taking out DeCaro right here. On paper, it looks like he's throwing unbelievably well. He might throw a complete game. In my mind, I'm like, okay, this is the 4th time through. And they ain't seen Ryan Lynch. And his first fastball is going to be 96. And DeCaro's isn't going to be 96. And as I told DeCaro, we have great relationship. I said, hey, man, you want to throw a complete game? Don't hit the number 9 hitter, or I'm not making this change. It's that simple. So I feel like if it depends on who you have available, Tommy. If Jake Knapp's out there and you see that fastball ticking up and you don't have anybody, and even though it's a 4th time through, if his stuff is better than what you have in the bullpen, you're going to stay with Jake Knapp. But yesterday, a great situation, or, like I was joking with Knapp when Lynch threw a slider, because your ACC allows you to have the trap man in your dugout. You can't have the zone, but you can have the velocity and the rotations. I pointed at the slider and was like, hey, man, you ain't got that slider. And he goes, nope, I don't. So, we know what's available, but still, sometimes you have to go just flat out with your gut. And Jason DeCaro is tricky because he is tough. And his stuff may be ticking down, but, man, his it factor and his toughness factor are going to allow him to stay out there as well as Knapp too. So it's a tough decision, but you just got to make it sometimes.
Was it purely mechanical for him when he struggled and you moved him back and now he's back on it, or is it more to it?
Some mechanical. Coach Howell and Coach Gay. I mean, our coaches, man, Weirs and Coach Jay. They're phenomenal. I can't say it enough. They work so hard with these guys. They are baseball guys. They're diving in every angle, every number. But they also build a relationship with the kid where they'll listen to him, which is the most important thing. But, man, they've worked really hard with Jason. But, again, too, for me, he's just – I'm not surprised to see his velocity start ticking up now. He continues – he is, is he 19? I think he's still the youngest player on our team. But a lot of 96s recently. I think everybody expected him to come out of the gate his sophomore year and be 95 to 100 because but that's just not how it works always. He's still a young kid, still developing. Jake Knapp's 24. Aiden Howell's 23. Difference. There's a big difference, yeah. Lynch is older than DeCaro. McDuffie's older than DeCaro. So we laugh about that stuff. It doesn't surprise me. All 3 of them, I think, have Friday night stuff. And I'm confident in all of them. So I think it was really good for him, honestly. I think anytime you're young and you have some struggles, it makes you better, it makes you tougher, and it makes you work even harder.
Absolutely. And he is not one to not work. And
he's a worker.
I think he mentioned there was a 97 on the board in one of those pitches last weekend. So, yeah, he it's impressive how he's bounced back, at least looking from the outside. All right, couple easier questions before I let you get out of here. It's an off weekend. I know it's not an off weekend in the offices of Boshamer Stadium or the practice field, but how do you What do you do on these weekends when there's no game? It's like, do you just walk out there and be like, what am I supposed to do today? Or do we have some fun or
No,
relax?
the only when I'll say what am I supposed to do today is when I'm not in this position.
Trust me,
You
I
know, I
know
mean,
about
seriously,
being retired.
yeah, like I won't be. That day I'll find something to do anyway because that's my. I mean, there's so much to do right now. We got exams coming up. We're trying to build next year's team. The transfer portal opens up June 1st. You're trying to, you got to meet with players that are redshirted. You're trying to manage your roster. So there's so much going on. We met about that this week, but you're also preparing because you got these 2 games. Then you have those days. To me, I want to work ahead and be ready for Campbell. We still got to practice our guys. What days are the best days to lift? Who do we need to work here? Who do we need to work there? So those are the main things. I'll watch most likely. Now this is a time where we can go see our commitments. We can go see a kid that maybe a JUCO kid that popped up. I don't have any small kids anymore at home. But if they are at home, I'd love to try to have a family dinner, but I also want Coach Gaines and Coach Howell and Coach Wiersbicki to be to spend some time with their young kids. So I'm more than happy to go watch a high school game. So they're the guys, we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So we'll try to see as many players as we can see during that time, including our commitments to see where they are. Coach Jackson's driving to see a pitcher tonight just to see where he is. He's getting some draft attention. So until, the season's over, there's no would I love to take Mandy and go down the top? So yeah, I'd love to, but I probably wouldn't be able to, be too, I need to be around here and we're in the middle of our season. I'd like to be playing, Tommy, this weekend. So I don't look at it as like time away. I look at it as like, you can't really get ahead, but you can try,
Right.
Try to get ahead for the postseason. I want to plan out stuff too for these guys that have put our team in a great situation. I want them to have a blast when exams are over, team events, team dinners, movies, all that good stuff. So really just trying to work to get ahead as much as we can and enjoy warm weather.
Yes, absolutely. Did we eat good in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we did.
And did you get the names of the places?
The milkshake factory is phenomenal. I do know that. You have to go there. We ended up going, me and the coaches and a couple other, and Daniel, some families there, Carr's families there. We ate at Morton's because it was right beside it, but we got the burger because we're too cheap to eat the steaks. We were ticked off. We ate there Saturday night after we lost, so we said we don't deserve a steak. We got to eat burgers anyway. But that's the city there, but it's cold. We knew what we were trying to do. We want to get there. We want to get the wins, get the series, and get home. Because you look at our schedule, we're at home and we're at Tallahassee. So unless something crazy happens, I think I'm gonna be wearing short sleeves.
Hopefully,
which
better.
We hope. Yeah. So that's the hope, and this is the best part for our guys. They're a little bit banged up. I'm proud of them because don't believe in making excuses, but we've had some injuries, we've had some challenges, and our guys have found ways to get it done and put themselves in a good position moving forward.
Yep. That is head coach Scott Forbes. Thanks for joining me as always. You got 2 midweeks off the weekend for exams, Campbell, and then NC State. Look, the ACC scheduling is in the past been sort of weird across the board with all the teams, but to set you guys up with NC State at home, given where they are in the conference now, and then Florida State on the road, I'm not sure you could ask for a tougher but more expected and hyped up ending to a regular season, can you?
I mean, I looked at the schedule. It's funny you said that. I thought, well, if we have a decent – I knew that we were losing a lot, but I feel like we could pitch it okay. If we're in decent shape, man, that could be awesome. Packed crowds. State's always going to play good the second half. Coach Avent does a phenomenal job with that. Florida State. And I'm intrigued by – I thought when we played Miami was good. I thought their arms were real. And they're playing better. State has to go to Miami. So if anything, if I am not somewhere at a game, I'll watch those games live, and I can really get my eyes on how NC State plays, what their what they look like. They're at Miami. They're facing mostly right-handers like what we have. So I look forward to that, and I respect the other coaches in the league. And if anything, that's what I'll do. I'll watch games and flip it around. Last night was awesome. I got home early and I'm watching Michael Bush, against the Phillies on Sunday Night Baseball. So I'll just watch as much baseball and watch as many ACC games. I think the ACC, the last day, I think teams could finish as high as 1 if you win a game, or 2, or finish 8. It's just the way it's going to be.
And with the way the ACC tournament is set up, it could mean you're playing on whatever Thursday or Tuesday. It's crazy.
Yeah, you just have to hope that you're in position where, everybody's goal is to host a regional. And you hope you can get to that point. So we'll see.
Indeed, that is head coach Scott Forbes of the 33-10 and number 4 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. Scott, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Enjoyed it.
Many thanks to head coach Scott Forbes. Always a pleasure to talk to Scott, talk Carolina baseball. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to JohnnyT-Shirt.com if you can't get to see him on Franklin Street. They're wonderful folks, wonderfully alumni-owned and operated small business that is done well on Franklin Street and is one of the pillars of Franklin Street. So visit them there on Franklin Street if you're in Chapel Hill, or online at JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Tell them Inside Carolina sent you. They'll give you 10% off your order, and they will make it right. And they will have sales. They have wonderful gear, and they've got the baseball gear. If you want to get out to Boschheimer Stadium when Carolina's on the mound and on the field Tuesday and Wednesday, the following Tuesday, and then at home against NC State on a big weekend in Chapel Hill. Not only is NC State in town, but graduation is that Saturday night. So a lot of reasons to be in Chapel Hill and a lot of reasons to go to Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. We'll be back soon.